I want to bring in now Roland Martin, host and managing editor for NewsOne Now and senior analyst for the Tom Joyner Morning Show. Roland, thanks for joining us.
Glad to be here.
And I want to talk about another group of voters where Clinton is trying to gain some support. We're talking about this new New York Times CBS News poll out today. Let's pull it up on screen if we can. It's showing some interesting numbers when it comes to likely voters, specifically from the Obama coalition. There's been a lot of talk about the enthusiasm gap there. And I want to talk to you a little bit. How do you see her picking up steam or trying to change the trend line when it comes to that key coalition?
Well, that was the very question I asked her on the Tom Joyner Morning Show. We taped the interview on yesterday. We were supposed to tape it on Monday, but then, of course, they canceled because she got ill. But the bottom line is here. That super predator comment really hurt her. And the Clinton crime bill. Now, here's what's very interesting. President Bill Clinton signed that crime bill. She was an enthusiastic supporter, championing out there. But guess who actually wrote it? Now Vice President Joe Biden. So it's interesting how he doesn't get tagged with it, Bill Clinton does. She has to connect with young black voters. Cornell Belcher, a brilliant Corners research, who was an Obama pollster in 2008, 2012, asked the question about influence. Black Lives Matter, that movement greatly influences Generation X, Generation Y, and millennials. In 3 years, they've surpassed the influence with those three groups, even amongst traditional civil rights groups. So she has to speak to those issues. She's got to talk about HBCUs. She has to talk about criminal justice reform. She has to talk about jobs, lowering student debt. That's huge, and that's why her numbers are they're lagging, because that group is not enthusiastic about her campaign.
Well, you referenced that question that you asked her this morning on the Tom Joyner Show. I want to play that particular question, if we can get our guys to roll it here, the one about issues that are important to young African-American folks. Listen.
Well, but I think I've worked very, very hard to be more transparent than not just my opponent. My tax returns are out there, 40 years of transparency about my tax returns. So I think that the real questions need to be directed toward Donald Trump and his failure to even meet the most minimalistic standards that we expect of someone being the nominee of one of our two major parties.
So, Roland, that was actually Clinton talking about transparency there, which is something that I want to touch on with you. In addition to what she said about reaching out to the Obama coalition, which is that she's going to work to do that over these next 54 days. Is that simply too late when you look at where we are at this point in the election?
No, it's not too late. First of all, you're talking about a little more than 50 days left. She's going to North Carolina. Remember, before she got sick, she was in North Carolina, gave a very targeted speech in Charlotte on voter suppression. Understand, there are 9 historically black colleges and universities in North Carolina. President Obama won North Carolina in 2008 by 14,100 votes. The federal appeals court ruled on the voter suppression bill there. That is huge. They tried to cut early voting days. They tried to cut Sunday voting. She has to have a significant turnout among those groups. But also the governor, Pat McGrory, he's down 6 points there, although Senator Barr is up 6 points. And so she has to have that turnout, but she has to drive that point home. But she's going to be helped by the fact when Senator Bernie Sanders hits the campaign trail, Vice President Joe Biden, First Lady Michelle Obama, President Obama, plus former President Bill Clinton. And so she's going to have far more major surrogates, but they have to basically make it plain. This is what this means to you. This is what it means to you when it comes to death penalty, Supreme Court decisions, Affordable Care Act. She has to understand, she has to make the point that if Donald Trump wins, Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the White House, you can kiss the Affordable Care Act goodbye. That affects young folks, African Americans, and others. So she's got to speak more plainly to that coalition in terms they understand and appreciate.
So, Roland, Donald Trump is also speaking to members of that coalition. As you know, he's trying to appeal to African American voters.
No, he's not.
He talked about it. Well, he talked about it in Flint, Michigan, and I'll get your take. But I want to play you this moment because it was one that caught a lot of attention yesterday. Trump, now this morning, lashing out at this pastor in Flint, Michigan, who stopped him from going after Hillary Clinton at a speech in a church. Here's what Trump had to say earlier this morning. Listen.
Mr. Trump, I invited you here to thank us for
okay.
Not to give a political speech.
Okay.
Even in that audience, the treatment was great. But something was up because I noticed she was so nervous when she introduced me, and when she got up to introduce me, she was so nervous. She was shaking, and I said, wow, this is sort of strange. And then she came up. So she had that in mind. There's no question about it.
So Trump saying the pastor had it in mind that she would come up and interrupt him if he were to start talking about Hillary Clinton. Keep in mind that at one point she also stopped a heckler who was attempting to interrupt Trump's speech. So, Roland, I just kind of want to get your broad take on this. What did you make of that as you were watching it, as you listened to Trump's response?
Shameful and despicable. That woman is the pastor, Pastor Faith Timmons, who invited him into the church, and she was absolutely right. What she was saying is, you were supposed to come here and thank us for what we did when it came to the water crisis in Flint. They wanted to know what he was going to do about that problem, where you have a Republican governor, Snyder, there, and they still have those issues where the children there are going to be tested for lead for the rest of their lives. It could impact their children. Women have lost babies. And so she was absolutely right. It's despicable for him to make those comments about her because she allowed him to come in. She could have said no, like the mayor of Flint did in terms of a tour. And so he should be far more respectful of what that woman did. Armstrong Williams, who was business manager of Ben Carson, helped set that up. He texted me that video this morning, and I'm sure Armstrong Williams and Ben Carson are telling Donald Trump, don't you dare say those things about that black female pastor, because here's the other piece. African-American women and Republican officials told me this personally. They hate the GOP more than anybody else. The one thing Donald Trump does not want to do is tick off black women because they voted at a higher rate than anybody else in America, 2008, 2012. Trump, you might want to leave the sisters alone.
What did Armstrong say when he texted you about that video?
Well, he simply sent me the video, and so we're supposed to talk later today. I mean, so he's been very much involved in this in terms of taking him around. But you make the point earlier, Trump's outreach to African Americans. This is not about black folks. Because that video you played earlier of that white female in North Carolina, that's what it is. Suburban, white, conservative females do not like antagonism towards minorities. So Trump being able to ease back on that, that's why he's doing better, because they feel more comfortable. They do not like the attack on minorities. That's why he's changed his tone. So he's not trying to court black votes. Trust me. What he's trying to do is to make white females who are conservative more comfortable with him as opposed to African Americans. But if he wants black votes, he got a lot more work to do.